Hi everybody. So this video is going to show you how to do this assignment where we are doing a value study using letters that are made in a grid. So if you see this one here, this is a sample. If you look carefully, you might be able to see these letters. I have the letter A, I have the letter R, I have the letter T, and this is the letter D. There's a letter A. There's the line going across there. Now this might look like an E, but it's actually a C, because I just started with the letter C and then I drew this line coming around. This here is a letter F, but again, it might look like an E because I have another line cutting across here. This is a letter U, and then this is the letter N. So you are going to be putting letters into each of these boxes, and then you're going to be doing some value studies and you'll be doing some shading. So the first thing that I'm going to suggest that we do is we do some practicing of creating value with pencil. So to start this off, to do a little practicing, you're going to need a piece of paper. Any piece of paper will do. I just happen to be using some drawing paper, but if you have some copy paper or even notebook paper is fine, with lines or without, but you're just going to be practicing. Another thing you're going to need is a pencil. So make sure that your pencil is well sharpened, whether you're using a hard pencil or a soft pencil. If you have a choice, my suggestion is to get a nice soft pencil, something that, you know, kind of gets on your fingers when you're writing and stuff like that. If you use a mechanical pencil, you can absolutely use a mechanical pencil, but if you have a choice, a wood pencil would be better. This is just the Ticonderoga number 2 HB. When you get the pencil, try to get it sharpened pretty nicely where you have a lot of your graphite exposed as opposed to a little round nubby end, because it'll allow you to not only, you'll have a lot more control. You can make lines that are very, very deliberate and very precise, but then it'll also allow you to use the edge of the pencil where you can get these nice soft little shadows going here. So to kind of take you through the process, a couple of little tricks. If you're to create a value scale, now I'm just going to draw a little bit of a kind of a rectangle here for you, and this is just to kind of determine where this value transitions are going to go. So you're going to have, you're going to try to capture as many different values as possible. So the very, very dark, you can start on the left or the right, whichever you prefer, and that's literally just kind of coloring it in really, really dark. You know, the more lead you add, the more graphite you add, the better. And now to do a transition, the pressure is going to be lighter, and I also kind of work in a bit of an oval, so it kind of prevents me from having too many streaks. And then I get to the point where I'm literally not putting a lot of pressure on at all. Another thing you can do is you can use hold the pencil a little bit differently, almost like a piece of chalk, where you can literally kind of move down the shaft a little bit so you put even less pressure on your point, and you just kind of keep going. So if I feel like I get a little darker if I'm working really close to the pencil point, and then it gets a little lighter if I move my hand down. So as you keep working on this, you're going to find that, you know, these variations might be too spread out, so you can kind of come back and work a little bit smaller and start blending these areas together. You know, I'm working in a smaller area right here to kind of bring those transitions together. Also, if you've found that you're not really staying in the lines really well or not hitting the lines well enough, I am barely touching my paper. I'm working nice and light. I'm purposely not working straight up and down to get those streaks. I'm purposely using the edge of the pencil point. Now the part of this that is different than the pen we've been using is, let's say that you just happen to go too dark in a spot. You always use this other end of your pencil called the eraser, and you can literally lift that off. Now another thing you could do is you could smudge with your finger, and you can really get those colors kind of close together. The problem with smudging, though, it's not really a problem, but just something to consider, is that as I smudged, you notice that it got a little bit lighter. So once you smudge it, you might need to go back and reapply the pencil. That is completely normal that happens. You smudge away some of your pencil. Just make sure you wash your hands because your finger gets awfully dirty. So before you go touch your white tablecloth. Okay, so I'm just taking this to the end, and I'm really just kind of challenging myself, seeing how light and how dark I can do this, and you just want to make sure that this transition is pretty consistent. So again, this is just kind of warming up, you know, practicing getting those edges. And again, if you want to see how light you can make it, you know, honestly, sometimes I just end up using my dirty finger just to put a little light shadow in there. And the bonus is that, you know, to kind of clean up the edge, you literally can just erase the areas that you don't want that pencil to be. All right. So you're going to practice this a couple of times, creating different shapes, doing different values. A couple of things you can do is you can go from dark to light. Another thing you can do is if you wanted to do dark to light to dark. So it would be the same kind of process, but the transitions would be faster. You could try something like this. You can also do dark all the way around and light just in the center. You know, there's a nice variety that you could use, and then eventually you're going to apply them to the design with the letters and the lines. So, like I said, the biggest thing is that, you know, you have your dark and you have your light. It's that transition in between that you want to go pretty smoothly. You don't want to see any lines of value. Like, you shouldn't see a line here. It should be blending in with what's next to it. Nothing should really look like an outline. Again, I'm going to smudge it in here and keep going with the transitions. And as I said, if you feel like you're getting too dark, you can always go back and lighten it up with your pencil eraser, just like this. And I tend to kind of dot it. I don't really. Okay, so you're just going to practice like a couple of different value transitions until, you know, you're feeling pretty comfortable with it. And depending on your pencil, and also depending on your prior experience with this, some of you guys it's going to go a little smoother. Some of you guys might need to kind of practice a little bit more. So I'm totally down with that. You know, whatever you have to do. So just practice a couple of different ways that you can incorporate shading. Make sure you get those nice smooth transitions, and then you're ready to work on the actual value study, which is the next step. So as I mentioned before, this is the final design. It consists of 9 squares set up like a grid. I forget how much each of the lines or each of the squares are. So in case you need to draw this, yeah, it's a 2-inch square. So if you need to draw this because you don't have access to printing out this thing, what you can do is you can just make a 2-inch by 2-inch grid, 3 down, 3 across, to make 9 squares. That's what you're going to need. Like I said, these are each 2 inches, so this is going to be a 6-inch by 6-inch square split up into 9. Okay, so here's the blank one, and the instructions are up here, but I'll take you through the process. So you're going to pick some letters, right? Doesn't really matter what the letters are, and you are going to fill them up. I would say use capital letters, and when you draw these letters, try to get them to touch each of the sides. So this is my rendition of the letter P. I did a line that went on an angle here. Otherwise, I would just be drawing the line right up against here. But just to kind of make it stand out, I drew it on an angle. So if you have any horizontal or vertical lines, like a letter Z, you don't want to put a line like that. You would draw, have this line that goes across the top, but just change the angle. So I wanted to do the letter E, for example, I have a line like this. Oops, excuse me. You have a line coming down here, and you have a line like this. So you can make them a little stylized. You can take this line going all the way across if you'd like. So like, for example, the letter Z, I'll have a line here, have a line here, have a line here. So if it spells out something, that's fine. If they're just random letters that you like, you absolutely can use whatever letters you want. Let's see, let's do a G. So here's my version of the letter G. I could have a line come down like that. And the good thing about pencil is if you make a mistake or you change your mind in some way, you can always go back and erase it and reapply it. So the idea is you want these letters to touch all the sides. So let's just finish this up with a couple of more random letters. The letter Tim. Actually, I'm going to bring this down. So if you even want to just write the same letters over and over again, you can do that. I'm not really holding you accountable for anything as far as what it needs to spell or anything like that. You just want some letters. So if you just wanted to write P-E-Z, 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 you could totally do that. Or P-E-Z, Z-E-P, you know. You get the idea. All right, so that's the layout that you guys are going to have first. You're going to have the letters. The next thing is that you're going to split up these spaces a bit, because if I start working with value, I can put a value scale in here, you know, like a variation over here and here. But some of these spaces are crazy big. So we're going to just draw some lines to split up the space a little bit more. These lines could be curved like that, and you can stop them and continue them along later on. So you can have them, you know, if you just want this one to kind of stop and go differently, you can just kind of have it kind of continuing like that. They can be straight across, they can cut through any way that you want. But you want to, one thing I would suggest is just make sure you're kind of keeping track of these spaces. I'm sorry, I'm just fixing this P. I would really like it to touch the edge here. If you find that you have these teeny tiny spaces, like I wouldn't put a line through this one. I wouldn't put a line through here at all. Like you can avoid it, which is why you can see I broke it here and continued it and continued it. I broke it here because I thought it would be better if this was just stayed the same. So don't feel like you have to put so many lines in. If you find that like you put 2 lines in and you're like, yeah, that's good, I'm fine, then that is completely fine. So like I said, I'm stopping there and I'm continuing them down. Okay, so you want to fill up the space, but you don't want these areas to get too small. If they get too small, it just gives you a lot of work, and you might not be welcoming that. Okay. All right. So again, I'm thinking over here, maybe just putting just some sort of line in here. I'm going to go straight down because I'm feeling like these spaces are kind of big. And again, I can change my mind. I can take some lines away and I can always add them. But if you have them too random, it just might be a little too busy. So I'm pretty content with that. So step 1, you pick your letters and you put them in. Step 2, you do the same thing. You put the letters across here, letters across here, steps 1 and 2. Step 3, you're going to split up the spaces with some more lines. It's at this point, the next step is that we're going to be starting to add our value to the spaces. Okay, so referring to this, these little activities that you were doing where you were practicing your shading, you're basically doing these different values and you're putting them into these spaces here. It doesn't really matter where you start. Some people feel more comfortable starting with the tiny spaces. Some people feel more comfortable working with one square at a time. Completely up to you. So I'm going to start in this space right here. So you're going to be creating a value transition in that space right here. So let me just zoom in a bit so you can see what we're doing. And so you have a choice, right? Do you want the dark to go, hold on, I'm just trying to focus a little bit. Do you want the dark to go into, like start here and go out? Do you want the dark to go here and go this way? Do you want it to go from the left to the right? Do you want it to go from the center out? So let's say that I want this to be dark all around the outside here. So you're gonna go kind of hard and real deliberate around the edge. This is the one part where you want to just make sure that the edge of your shape is nice and smooth. Of course, you're going to be turning your paper. Okay, so I'm making this like a centimeter wide, well, less than a centimeter, like a millimeter. Just like a little scribble around the outside, nice and dark. So that represents my really, really dark shadow, my dark shade. And everything, as I go in, it's going to get lighter. So I find that when I work up and down, I feel very, very comfortable in that sort of method. So I'm going to go up and down. And notice I'm not really that close to I'm not really close to the point anymore. And I'm using the side of my pencil, and I'm leaving my hand is literally just laying down on the table, and I'm just going lighter and lighter and lighter. Okay, just kind of blending it, working in kind of an oval. Okay, and I'm getting rid of that line, like I'm going back over that line a bit, so I don't have that really, really dark area there. So I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to continue it. Now, what's probably going to happen is in the middle, I'm going to have too many overlapping values that it might get too dark in there, but that's okay. I can always lighten it up with an eraser. So again, I'm doing the same process, and I continue to shade here. Go crazy like that. Keep turning it. Here. I find that when you're working with pencil and you're working with shading, you are better off working kind of on top of your paper. Talk about posture a little bit. If you're working at a table where you're kind of low sitting, you're better off trying to find an area where you can be up higher. Right now I'm standing, actually. I'm standing on top of my paper, like, not standing literally on top, but my head is right above my paper, and I'm standing, hovering over it, and above my iPad, which is on a stand and everything. But, when I'm up on top of it, I can really see what I'm doing here. So, what I just did is I just took my finger and I started to blend, using my finger as a blending stick. And I just kind of keep shading. When you blend with your finger, you might notice that some of this medium dark areas kind of get lost in there, like where you see lines. So you might need to kind of go back, and that's okay. You kind of go back with your pencil and just lightly hit those areas. You can also take an eraser right in the center, and you can lighten up the middle part. Just take your finger and just kind of blend it a little bit. So I would say that looks pretty good. Let's pull back a little bit so you can see what it looks like. I really like that. I'm very happy with that. Good job. So once you do one area, then you're going to work on another area. So this space right here, while this is very, very dark here, I may not want dark on top of dark. I might want this to be the lighter of the value. Like, I don't really want them right up against each other. So maybe what I'll do is I'll go dark to light up here and just to transition the whole thing. So again, same process. I go real, real dark along the edge that I want. And you're just gonna keep building it up. Now, I may want this to be really, really light. Like, in other words, you see how this one, it's not really, it's not white. It's not even close to being white. I may want it to be pretty light by the time I get here. And that's completely fine. It creates a nice variety. You want to have some variations. You don't want them to all look really dark and really light. And I'll show you my other, the sample, the finished sample in a second, just so you can see. But like, that might be it. Like, that looks pretty good. Aside from maybe fixing this up in here just a little bit, just smoothing out that transition, that space might be good. Because honestly, my finger had a lot of graphite on it to begin with. So even just using my finger as a tool, it really kind of smoothed it out. So I'd say that area is done. Now it's okay if I have it kind of spilling into this space, because this still needs to be colored in. But then again, I'm going to pick a different way to shade this. Maybe I'd like to have this, dark on the inside go into light, So you're going to be making those choices. So at the end, like I said, your spaces are all going to be having different value transitions. So for example, here, this went from light to dark, from dark on the right to light on the left, and this one's dark on the left, light to the right. So this one's from the bottom to the top, and this one's from the corner out there. So to have a nice variety of different value changes, it creates a lot of visual interest. And again, some of the spaces are kind of darker, some of the areas are a bit lighter, and that's, again, it creates some visual interest. So this is a finished piece. One very, very last thing I'm going to mention to you is I'm going to have a separate video for you, and it's going to show you how you can create a blending stick. A blending stick is literally just a rolled up piece of paper, and this rolled up piece of paper is, it allows you to kind of do blending, and so instead of using a finger, you can get a little bit more precise with shading. So instead of blending it with your finger, you can use this blending stick. They're also called tortillons, and it's just another tool to use. Now, I do have them in the art room. I do have them available, but we cannot access my art room. So this was literally made out of like a little piece of copy paper. But you could see, I think I blended it in too much in there. But you could see that it will smooth out your areas. Okay. Also, if it's all messy like this, it has the graphite on it. You can see you can actually color with it. So I do that all the time. Like if I need like a subtle little shadow, if I'm doing some drawings and I need something kind of subtle, but I don't need it drawn. You can see it really creates a nice nice shadow, but not too dark. And you can always erase for some value lights, and you can put some darks in. So, if you had something like hair or something. So I will be showing you guys how to make this in another video. You got to look out for it. All right? Good luck.